Everybody wants to do more with Canada, except the United States. Everyone wants to do more with Canada. So we're engaged in all these trade negotiations, and we're delivering them, and we're on track to have access, free trade access to 3 billion consumers. That's what we got.
Can you say what we're getting in return from the U.S. right now in terms of the trade negotiations? We have these lists of things that are happening right now.
The best trade deal in the world right now. Thank you.
That's how the Prime Minister of Canada answered a reporter fishing for a concession, not with a defense, with a flex. This was a press conference in Red Deer, Alberta, that reporters clearly walked into loaded for a fight, and it didn't go the way they planned.
Your government has capitulated on revenue splitting for Gordie Howe Bridge, digital service tax, and removing funding for American streamers. What has Canada gotten in return for these concessions?
Well, let's do a couple of things. Sorry, I'm going to do a little premise surgery for your question. Let's be clear about the bridge. The bridge, first off, the bridge is open. Bridge is open in a region, a narrow economic region that has $300 billion of economic activity that goes across land connections between the United States and largely the province of Ontario. $300 billion of economic activity. $6.5 billion cost of that bridge. A agreement that's less than 5% of that amount, less than 5% of that amount, that is then reinvested in economic support for that economic activity to enhance that economic activity. So we put that in perspective. That's being pragmatic and moving forward. And we got a bridge that's open. We've got opportunities open. And in terms of where we are as a country, we still have the lowest tariff rate of any country on an average basis. We still have north of 80% of our trade, 85 as we speak today, but north of 80% of our trade is tariff-free with the United States. And we're engaged in discussions with them. Now, we're engaged with discussions working to have a more permanent or more stable is a better way to put it. Nothing's permanent, but a more stable relationship, trading relationship with the U.S. That addresses issues in some of our largest industries. And that recognizes the new U.S. approach to trade. So we're starting from a strong position. And I'm going to go back to one other thing, and I'll head back, which I said at my prepared remarks. And we're stronger than we were when this started. We are stronger than we were when this started. We're growing jobs twice the rate of the U.S. Our FDI is twice the rate of our nearest competitor. That's the United States. It's twice the rate of the U.S. We're the best country in the world judged for infrastructure investment.
Notice what he just did. He didn't dispute the word concession. He redefined the math underneath it. $6.5 billion of bridge, $300 billion of annual trade running across it, and a revenue-sharing arrangement worth less than 5% of the total. Framed that way, capitulation doesn't hold up as a headline. And he wasn't done using numbers as a weapon.
We're 3 weeks away until new President Trump's tariffs coming into effect. Are you willing to use Canadian energy as a bargaining chip in trade negotiations with the United States, yes or no?
We're 3 weeks away from the August deadline. My colleagues, Janice Charette, who's our chief trade negotiator, and Minister LeBlanc, the relevant minister, are both in Washington now, so they're engaging with their counterparts. Look, we will, first and foremost, we're engaged in those negotiations to look to find a mutually beneficial solution, and we're only going to accept a solution that works for Canadians. We have lots of options of what we would do if that's not there, both positive in terms of supporting the economy and also addressing other issues, but I'm not going to be drawn on what we're going to do, and we're going to focus now on building towards an agreement if an agreement is possible.
A direct yes or no question, and he gave neither. That's not evasion for its own sake. It's a prime minister refusing to hand Washington a headline 3 weeks before a deadline. And when he was pushed on the same idea from a different angle later in that same press conference, his answer got even more specific about why he won't do it.
Being a reliable supplier is important. Canadians are reliable. Canadians can be trusted. One of the things that you see in the world, we have many exports and commodities, one of the biggest commodities, arguably the best, is trust. People trust us. And so when you're a supplier of a key commodity, key service, you got to think really hard about not supplying. So that very much colors it. So look, this is incredibly diverse country economy. We have many things we can do. First and foremost is to work towards an agreement. That's what we're going to do. But there's other things we can do if we needed to address the situation was there. And the issue you're raising that was raised previously, it's not. I don't see the value of doing. I mean, I can understand conceptually, but I don't see the value of it. So it doesn't enter in. I guess to put a fine point on the way you asked the question, the referendum, the calculate that doesn't enter into the calculus. It's a bigger issue, more fundamental issue.
Trust as a commodity. That's a genuinely different way to frame energy leverage than most politicians would even think to use, and it's a direct rebuke of the idea that Canada should start acting as unpredictably as the country pressuring it. But the numbers Carney leaned on hardest that day weren't about energy at all. They were about a $510 million announcement most of the headlines about this press conference completely ignored.
And that's why today the Premier and I are proud to announce the new Canada-Alberta Housing Infrastructure Fund Agreement. What does it mean? It means over the next 8 years, the Canadian government will invest more than $510 million through the Canada Housing Infrastructure Fund to help communities across Alberta build and, when necessary, upgrade essential drinking water, wastewater, stormwater, solid waste infrastructure, all of which is needed to build more homes in this province faster.
And together with our partners, Alberta is driving $9 billion in housing investments to support 25,000 additional affordable households by 2031. Through our Stronger Foundation strategy, we are on track to support a total of 82,000 low-income households by 2031, which is an increase of more than 40% from 2021. And I'm proud to state that we are already 70% of the way towards this goal.
$500 million federal dollars, matched by provincial commitments in the billions, aimed at water and sewage infrastructure, the unglamorous plumbing that has to exist before a single new home can be built. It's not the kind of announcement that trends on its own, but it's exactly the kind of detail that gets buried the moment a reporter asks a sharper, more confrontational question about trade. And Carney didn't just play defense on trade that day. He made the case that Canada is actively expanding its options while Washington narrows its own.
We're also creating a trading network that's the envy of the world. Canada already enjoys preferential access to 1.5 billion consumers in economies that represent 2/3 of global GDP. We just concluded a new trade agreement with the UAE that was negotiated in a record 47 days. By the end of the year, we intend to double our market access to 3 billion consumers by concluding new agreements with the ASEAN countries, with India, Thailand, and the Philippines. Now, the people of Red Deer know the importance of good trade relationships. Give an example in agriculture. Alberta produces almost 1/3 of Canada's canola, this region at the heart of production. And that was top of mind a few months ago in January when we went to Beijing to secure a new deal with China that unlocked $3 billion in export opportunities for Canada's canola farmers.
A trade deal with the UAE closed in 47 days. A path to doubling market access to 3 billion consumers by year-end. A $3 billion canola breakthrough with China, negotiated specifically because Alberta and Saskatchewan farmers needed it. While one country tries to narrow Canada's options down to a single negotiating table, Canada keeps opening new ones. And the same logic showed up in how Carney tied trade strategy directly back to Alberta's own economy.
In an increasingly divided and dangerous world, our unity is our greatest strength. Governments are working together in the spirit of cooperative federalism to make this country stronger, fairer, and more prosperous. That's how the Government of Canada is working with the Government of Alberta to advance a new oil pipeline to the West Coast. This will unlock new markets and support lasting prosperity in Alberta and beyond. The Associated Pathways Carbon Capture Initiative will make Alberta's oil some of the lowest in carbon intensity in the world, while creating an entirely new industry built once again on Albertan drive, and ingenuity, just as Alberta did with the oil sands when I was growing up here. Combined, these projects will catalyze over $200 billion in direct investments, create over 175,000 jobs across this country.
A West Coast pipeline and a carbon capture project framed not as a concession to the oil industry or to environmentalists, but as a single package. $200 billion in investment, 175,000 jobs, and lower carbon Alberta oil all at once. That's Carney trying to make the pressure from Washington work for Alberta instead of against it. And Alberta's Premier used the same press conference to raise a completely different fight, one that has nothing to do with Trump at all.
The growth in the program grows with the size of the economy, which is kind of counterintuitive, because if the economy is growing and everybody's doing better, they should be less reliant on the equalization program. In fact, we've calculated that there's overcompensation to the have-not provinces of $7 billion over the last 5 years. So my pitch to my fellow premiers, and now my pitch to the Prime Minister, is let's just get rid of that escalator. Let's equalize to the point of need, and then let's take the excess that's in that fund and distribute it back to the provinces on an equal per capita basis. That'll help us with our funding pressures, and I think it will be a demonstration.
And at the heart of fairness, and this is true it's true within a province, it's true across the country, is that Canadians have access to reasonably comparable services, right? Whether it's health, education, reasonably comparable. Doesn't mean it's exactly the same, but it's reasonably comparable. And that they have reasonably comparable resources in order to do that. Now, the second part of that equation, the reasonably comparable resources, the calculation of that and how that changes over time. Some provinces do better, others do, things, there are shocks. The trade stuff can be an element of that if it's more persistent. And that's why the program is reviewed on a regular basis. It's not reviewed every year, and that's a cooperative and engaged process. And we have a review of that coming up, and of course we'll be looking hard at that.
That's Alberta's Premier standing next to the Prime Minister, publicly making the case that her own province is being shortchanged by a federal formula, and Carney not dismissing it, but committing to an actual review. It's a reminder that underneath the unified front on trade, there's a real ongoing argument about who pays for what inside this country, tariffs or no tariffs, which makes the numbers Carney closed with land even harder.
In Alberta, across Canada, we're strongest together, united, focused, working towards the same goals, making better lives for all our citizens. That's the approach Canada's new government has taken from the start, working with every province and territory to build our strength at home and to diversify those partnerships abroad. And as a consequence of that, even though we've got a lot more to do, we're in a stronger position today than when the trade war began. We're now creating jobs at twice the rate of the United States. Canada's non-U.S. exports are up sharply. They're on track to double over the next decade. Foreign direct investment in Canada is at its highest level in 2 decades and running at twice the rate of our nearest G7 competitor. Canada now ranks as the most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment, and we're just getting started.
Jobs growing twice as fast as the U.S. foreign investment at a 2-decade high. The most attractive country in the world for infrastructure investment, according to Carney's own numbers. Whether or not you take every figure at face value, the strategy behind them is clear. Answer every "you caved" question with an arithmetic lesson, and answer every use energy as a weapon question by explaining why trust is worth more than leverage. Reporters came in looking for a prime minister on the defensive. They left with a press conference built entirely around the opposite message. Do you think Carney's numbers actually hold up, or is this just a confident delivery covering for real concessions? Subscribe to Unbiased Canada, hit like, and let us know in the comments.